Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we diving deep into the heart of the Pride Lands for a classic what-if scenario that has intrigued fans for years. What if Simba had a brother? What if, upon his return, he found not Scar, but a sibling ruling the kingdom? Let's call him Kiarn, a popular fan-favorite name. This isn't just a simple family reunion. It's a battle for the throne, a clash of ideologies, and a struggle for the very soul of the Pride Lands. So, grab your popcorn and let's explore this epic saga. Simba versus his brother. To set the stage, let's imagine Kiarn was born shortly after Simba. While Simba was the firstborn and destined heir, Kiarn grew up in his shadow. He wasn't malicious, but he carried the quiet weight of being the spare. When the tragedy at the gorge struck and both Mufasa and Simba were presumed lost, the weight of the crown fell unexpectedly upon Kiarn's young shoulders. Guided by Serabi, Zazu, and the Pride's elders, he was raised not with the carefree spirit of Simba, but with the heavy burden of a kingdom in mourning. He learned duty, sacrifice, and the harsh realities of leadership from a very young age. Under Kiarn's rule, the Pride Lands wouldn't have decayed like they did under Scar. Kiarn respects the circle of life. However, his leadership style would be drastically different from Mufasa's, haunted by the loss of his family and the constant threat of the hyenas. Kiarn would become a pragmatist, perhaps even a bit of an isolationist. He'd enforce stricter hunting regulations to preserve resources, create a more formalized border patrol, and perhaps forge tense, but necessary, truces with neighboring territories to ensure stability. The Pride Lands under King Kiarn would be safe, orderly, and well-managed, but perhaps lacking the joyful, vibrant spirit it had under Mufasa. The laughter might be a little quieter, the celebrations a little more reserved. It's a kingdom of survival, not of joyous living. Now picture this. Years have passed. A fully grown Simba, bursting with his Hakuna Matata philosophy, carefree and confident, returns to the border of the Pride Lands. Guided by Nala, he expects to find the desolate wasteland she described, ruled by his wicked uncle Scar. Instead, he finds a thriving, if somber, kingdom. And on Pride Rock stands a lion he vaguely remembers, a lion who is now king. His brother Kiarn. The reunion would be a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, joy, confusion, and a dawning, uncomfortable reality. Simba is the rightful king by birthright. Kiarn is the reigning king by circumstance and years of dedicated service. This is where the real conflict begins. It's not a battle of good versus evil, like with Scar. It's a battle of two legitimate claims, two different philosophies of leadership. Simba, filled with the wisdom of his father and the free-spirited joy he learned in the jungle, sees a kingdom that has lost its soul. He wants to bring back the music, the color, the grand celebrations. He believes in a kingdom of abundance and trust. His philosophy is one of inspiration and living life to the fullest. He would argue that Kiarn's rigid control and borderline pessimistic views stifles the very essence of the Pride Lands. He'd say, a kingdom isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. On the other side, Kiarn would see Simba as a naive, irresponsible wanderer who abandoned his duty. From his perspective, Simba ran away while he stayed and rebuilt a broken kingdom from the ashes of their family's tragedy. He would see Simba's Hakuna Matata lifestyle not as a philosophy, but as a dereliction of duty. Kiarn would argue, you were off singing songs while I was rationing water. You want to throw a party? I'm worried about the next drought. His claim to the throne is backed by years of hard work, sacrifice, and the loyalty of a pride that has known only him as their protector. He saved them. How can this stranger, his long-lost brother, just waltz back in and claim the crown? The pride itself would be torn in two. The older lionesses, like Serabi, would be caught between the love for both her sons. She would see Mufasa's spirit in Simba, but also recognize the incredible leader Kiarn has become. Nala, who left to find help, would naturally side with Simba, as his return was what she hoped for. But what about the younger generation of lions, who have only ever known King Kiarn? They would see him as their steadfast, reliable leader. To them, Simba might seem like an outsider, a threat to the stability they've always known. The debate would rage through the Pride, birthright versus proven leadership, the past versus the present, so who would win? A physical fight between them would be epic. Simba, larger and likely stronger from a life of ease and jungle skirmishes, might have the edge in raw power. But Kiarn, while perhaps leaner, would be a strategic fighter, honed by years of defending the borders and managing threats. He wouldn't fight with brute force. He'd fight with intelligence and a deep knowledge of the terrain. He'd be defending not just a title, but his life's work, his home, and his people. That kind of motivation is a powerful force. It's likely neither could truly defeat the other without catastrophic consequences for the pride. Ultimately, I don't believe their conflict would be resolved through claws and teeth. The true climax would be a battle of hearts and minds. It would likely come down to a pivotal moment, perhaps a crisis like a fire or an invasion, where both brothers are forced to work together. In that moment, they would see the strengths in each other's leadership. Simba would witness Kion's strategic mind and deep sense of responsibility firsthand. Kion would see Simba's ability to inspire hope and rally the pride with a charisma he himself lacks. They would realize that the Pride Lands don't need one king. They need both of them. The perfect resolution? A co-regency. Simba, as the king of the Pride Lands, the face of the monarchy, embodies the spirit and heart of the kingdom, reviving its culture and joy. He would be the Mufasa figure, the inspiring leader who walks among his subjects. And Kion? He would lead the Lion Guard, a role he is perfectly suited for. As the commander of the Pride Lands defense, his strategic mind, pragmatism, and dedication would protect the kingdom, allowing Simba's vision to flourish. One brother inspires the kingdom, the other protects it. It's a perfect harmony, a new interpretation of the circle of life, where two paths merge to create a stronger future. It's a story that shows leadership isn't just about a title. It's about finding your place and using your unique strengths for the good of all. What do you guys think? Would Simba and Kion find a way to rule together, or would one have to step aside? Let me know your theories down in the comments below. I love reading your takes on these scenarios. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of the Lion King, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the savannah for a story you've never heard before. We all know the epic tale of Simba's return to Pride Rock and his climactic battle with Scar. But what if things had gone... differently? What if another, far more dangerous force had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Let us imagine a scenario where the final confrontation between nephew and uncle is interrupted by a truly unexpected arrival, the notorious hyena gang led by the one and only Lagerbuku. Picture this. Pride Rock is shrouded in smoke and flames. The epic battle is raging. Simba, fueled by righteousness and the memory of his father, has just cornered a weakened, desperate Scar at the edge of the cliff. The lionesses have fought bravely, but the sheer number of hyenas has taken its toll. Just as Simba is about to deliver the final, decisive blow, a new sound cuts through the chaos. It's not the cackle of Shinzi Bonzi or Ed. It's a deeper, more menacing laughter, echoing from the gorge below. Simba and Scar both freeze, their personal vendetta momentarily forgotten. Below them, a massive wave of hyenas is ascending the rock face. They move with a discipline and coordination that Scar's bumbling army could only dream of. At their head is a hyena, larger than any Simba has ever seen, with a jet-black mane and scars that tell stories of countless battles. This is Lagerbaku, a name whispered in fear across the distant Badlands. And with him are his top lieutenants, the cunning strategist Fura and the hulking brute Bonsai the Elder. No relation to Scar's lackey, but 100 times more fearsome. Lagerbaku's gang isn't here to pick sides. They see a kingdom in turmoil, a fractured royal family, and a land ripe for the taking. Lagerbaku's voice, a low gravelly rumble, silences the battlefield. Well, he sneers, his eyes glinting with ambition. Look what we have here. Two lions fighting over a pile of rock, while the real power prepares to take its rightful place. Shenzi and her clan, seeing this overwhelming new force, immediately back away. Their loyalty to Scar was always conditional, and they know they're outmatched. They didn't sign up for this. Suddenly, Simba and Scar are no longer just nephew and uncle. They are the last two lions standing between their home and a complete takeover by a ruthless tyrant. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, as the saying goes. Scar, ever the opportunist, is the first to speak, a sly grin playing on his lips. Despite the dire situation, "Nephew," he says, his voice dripping with faux concern, "it seems we have a mutual problem. This kingdom, as broken as it is still a lion's kingdom. Are you going to let these mangy scavengers take it?" Simba, he's torn. The hatred for his uncle burns brightly, but the immediate threat to everyone ala his mother. The entire pride is undeniable. He looks at Lagerbuku, then back at Scar. He knows trusting Scar is like trusting a snake, but what choice does he have? For the first time in years, the two lions find themselves on the same side, a fragile, unspoken truce forming between them. The battle for Pride Rock is far from over. It has just entered a terrifying new phase. The fight that ensues is unlike anything the Pride Lands have ever witnessed. It's no longer lion versus hyena, but a desperate alliance against a common, superior foe. Simba, with his youthful strength and righteous fury, leads the charge. Rallying the weary, he fights with the heart of a king, protecting his pride with every ounce of his being. And surprisingly, Scar fights with a cunning ferocity that Simba has never seen. He's not fighting for justice or honor. He's fighting for his own skin and the last vestiges of his power. He uses the terrain to his advantage, setting traps and using trickery to thin the ranks of Lagerbaku's army. Nala, Zazu, and Divan, Timon, and Pumbaa join the fray in their own ways. Zazu becomes an eye in the sky, calling out Lagerbaku's troop movements. Timon and Pumbaa, using their bowling for buzzards tactics, create chaos and diversions, buying the lion's precious time. We see incredible, almost unbelievable moments of teamwork. Simba saves Scar from a flanking attack by Bonza the Elder, and in return Scar directs Simba to a weak point in the hyena's formation. A move that only his tactical mind could spot, but Lagerbaku's forces are relentless. For every hyena that falls, two more seem to take its place. The fight pushes our heroes to their absolute limit. Sarabi, the Queen Mother, defends the den where the cubs are hidden, a stoic and unbreachable wall of maternal fury. Nala fights side by side with Simba. Their movements are perfect, synchronized dance of combat. It's a chaotic, brutal symphony of survival. In the heart of the storm, Lagerbaku himself finally confronts Simba. The young king is exhausted, but he stands his ground. Their duel is legendary. It's brute strength versus agility, raw power versus calculated defense. Meanwhile, Scar finds himself locked in a battle of wits and blades with Fura, the strategist. It's a chess match of attacks and parries, each trying to outsmart the other. The fate of the kingdom hangs on these two simultaneous duels. As the sun begins to rise, casting a blood-red glow over the savannah, a turning point is reached. Simba, remembering his father's words to look inside himself, finds a new reserve of strength. He uses his environment, his knowledge of Pride Rock, to gain the upper hand on At the same time, Scar, using a desperate, underhanded trick, manages to trap Fura, neutralizing Lagerbaku's right hand, seeing his top lieutenants fall and his army faltering. Lagerbaku lets out a roar of frustration. He knows he has underestimated the resolve of the lions. With a final, hate-filled glare at Simba, he calls the retreat. His army, disciplined even in defeat, melts back into the shadows of the gorge, vowing to return. The immediate threat is gone. Silence falls over Pride Rock, broken only by the panting of the exhausted fighters. The ground is littered with the casualties of the great battle. Simba stands tall, the undisputed victor and savior of his home, and then he turns to face Scar. The truce is over. The original conflict is back, hanging heavy in the air. Scar, weakened and cornered once more, knows his time is up. He looks at Simba, at the lionesses, who now look to their true king, and he sees no way out. But something has shifted in Simba. He has seen what they can accomplish when united. However briefly, he has seen Scar fight not as a tyrant, but as a defender of their home. Killing him now, after they fought side by side, feels different. It feels less like justice and more like an execution. "Leave, Scar," Simba says, his voice low and steady. "Leave the Pride Lands and never return. That is your only chance." Scar, for the first time, looks genuinely surprised. He gives a curt, almost imperceptible nod, and with one last look at the kingdom he lost, he turns and vanishes into the wasteland. The reign of Scar is over, not with a fatal fall, but with a quiet exile. The Pride Lands can finally begin to heal under King Simba. This alternate ending raises so many questions. What happens to Scar in exile? Does the threat of Lagabaku's return keep the Pride Lands on constant alert? This enemy of my enemy scenario adds a layer of complexity and moral ambiguity to the story we thought we knew. It shows that even the greatest villains and heroes can be forced to align against a greater evil. What do you guys think of this version of events? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite stories. See you next time. What if the story of the Lion King didn't end with Scar's fall from Pride Rock? What if his malice was so strong, so venomous, that it lingered, poisoning the very land he once coveted? Today, we're diving deep into a story you've never heard. A final chapter where Simba must face his greatest demon one last time. This is the tale of Simba vs. Scar's ghost, the final roar. Years have passed since Simba reclaimed his throne. The Pride Lands are flourishing, a vibrant paradise under his just rule. Nala is by his side, and their cub, Kiara, is a bundle of joy and curiosity. The circle of life is restored, balanced, and harmonious. But peace is a fragile thing. A strange sickness begins to creep across the savannah. The rivers run murky, the grass withers, and a chilling whisper is carried on the wind, a whisper that sounds hauntingly familiar. Simba first dismisses it as a bad omen, a memory of a darker time, but the whispers grow louder, twisting the dreams of the pride into nightmares. Animals become restless and aggressive. The land itself seems to groan in pain, echoing the suffering it endured under Scar's reign. Rafiki, ever the wise mystic, observes the changes with a heavy heart. He performs a ritual, gazing into his gourds, and what he sees confirms their worst fears. This isn't just an illness of the land, it's a spiritual decay. Scar's spirit, a phantom of pure hatred, has not moved on. It has clung to the Pride Lands, a ghostly parasite feeding on fear and doubt. One night, as a storm rages over Pride Rock, Simba is drawn to the summit. There, amidst the flashes of lightning, a terrifying figure takes shape. It's Scar. Not as he was in life, but a spectral, terrifying version of himself. His eyes burning with ethereal green fire. He's a ghost, an apparition of malice, and his voice is a venomous hiss that cuts through the wind. He tells Simba that his victory was a fluke, that the throne is his by right, even in death. He torments Simba, preying on his deepest insecurities. Guilt over Mufasa's death, the years he spent in exile, the fear of failing his kingdom. This isn't a physical battle, it's a war for Simba's soul. Scar's ghostly influence spreads, turning the Pride Lands into a mirror of the shadowy place from the past. The hyenas, long banished, feel his call and begin to prowl the borders once more, emboldened by their former master's spectral return. Simba's confidence begins to crumble. He sees his father's disappointment in every shadow, hears Scar's mocking laughter in every gust of wind. He starts to isolate himself, just as his father did in his final moments, fearing he's leading his family into another tragedy. Nala sees the change in him. She confronts him, reminding him that he is not his father, and he is certainly not Scar. She tells him that true strength isn't the absence of fear, but facing it head-on. Her words are a lifeline. Timon and Pumbaa, sensing their friend is in trouble, do what they do best. They bring levity, reminding him of Hakuna Matata, not as an escape, but as a philosophy of resilience to not let the past control the present. Their unwavering loyalty helps anchor Simba, pulling him back from the edge of despair. Realizing he cannot fight a ghost with claws and teeth, Simba seeks out Rafiki. The wise mandrill reveals an ancient secret. Scar's spirit is tied to a physical object, a dark totem he created in secret, hidden deep within the elephant graveyard. This totem is the source of his power, a vessel for all his hatred. To defeat the ghost, Simba must find and destroy it. But the graveyard is now more dangerous than ever, swirling with spectral energy and guarded by the phantom's influence. Simba knows he cannot do this alone. This isn't just his fight, it's a fight for the soul of the Pride Lands. He gathers the entire Pride, the elephants, the giraffes, all the animals who call this land home. He stands before them, not as a king weighed down by guilt, but as a leader ready to protect his people. He confesses his fear, his doubt, and in that moment of vulnerability, he finds his greatest strength. He tells them they will face this darkness together, as one united kingdom. The journey to the elephant graveyard is perilous. Illusions created by Scar's spirit assault them at every turn, visions of fire, famine, and betrayal. The whispers are constant, trying to sow discord among the animals. But this time Simba is prepared. He counters the whispers with words of hope and unity, his roar a beacon of courage in the oppressive gloom. His pride, his friends, and his subjects roar back, their combined voices a powerful symphony of defiance. They finally reach the heart of the graveyard. In the center of a massive elephant skull, a twisted, gnarled piece of obsidian pulses with a sickly green light. Scar's totem, and guarding it is the Phantom himself, larger and more terrifying than ever. He unleashes a torrent of spectral energy, a storm of pure fear. But Simba doesn't flinch. He is no longer the lost cub haunted by his past. He is the true king, protector of the circle of life. While the Pride holds back the ghostly illusions and the encroaching hyenas, Simba, with Nala by his side, confronts Scar's ghost. The spirit lunges, not to attack physically, but to invade Simba's mind. It shows him a horrifying vision, Mufasa falling, but this time it's Simba who pushes him. The guilt is overwhelming, but who's to see us about to break? He hears his father's real voice, not a phantom's trick. Remember who you are. That memory, that pure love, shatters the illusion. Simba looks Scar's ghost dead in the eyes and says, "You have no power over me. You are nothing but a shadow, and the sun has risen." With a mighty roar that shakes the very bones of the earth, a roar filled with the strength of his ancestors, the love of his family, and the spirit of the Pride Lands, Simba leaps. He doesn't attack the ghost. He lunges for the totem. With one powerful strike of his paw, he shatters the obsidian heart into 1,000 pieces. A blood-curdling scream echoes as Scar's spirit disintegrates, the green fire extinguishing, his form dissolving into nothingness like smoke in the wind. The oppressive darkness lifts. Instantly, the sun breaks through the clouds, bathing the graveyard in light for the first time in generations. The whispers are gone. The land can breathe again. Simba returns to Pride Rock not just as a victor, but as a king reborn, finally free from the shadows of his past. He understands now that true leadership isn't about being flawless. It's about leading with love, courage, and unity. The final roar wasn't just a sound. It was a declaration. It was the moment Simba truly accepted his place in the great circle of life, not just as Mufasa's son, but as himself. And the Pride Lands were finally, truly, at peace. Thanks so much for watching this epic what-if story. If you enjoyed this journey back to the Pride Lands, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Let us know in the comments what other final chapters you'd love to see. Until next time, the story you know is just the beginning. We all cheered when Simba reclaimed the Pride Lands. But what if the greatest threat wasn't vanquished? What if the shadow of Scar lingered, not just in memory, but in flesh and blood? This is the untold story, the battle that truly defined Simba's reign, the awakening of Scar's heir. Years of peace had softened the Pride Lands under Simba and Nola's rule. The herds returned, the grasslands flourished, and a new generation was born. Prince Kion and Princess Kiara were the pride and joy of the kingdom, symbols of a bright, unbroken future. But in the desolate outlands, a different legacy was stirring. Zira, Scar's most fervent loyalist, had been nursing a grudge that festered like a wound, and at the heart of her vengeance was Kovu. Though not Scar's biological son, he was his chosen heir, molded from birth for a single purpose: to reclaim the throne and avenge his master. Zira's training was brutal. Every day Kovu was drilled in combat, his mind poisoned with tales of Scar's supposed greatness and Simba's treachery. He was taught that love was weakness, mercy was for the foolish, and power was the only thing that mattered. His siblings, Nuka and Vitani, watched with a mix of fear and admiration. They were a family bound by hatred, their den a grim echo of Scar's dark reign. Zira saw in Kovu the perfect weapon, a Trojan horse to infiltrate the Pride Lands. Her plan was simple, yet diabolical. Kovu would get close to Kiara, earn Simba's trust, and when the moment was right, he would strike. The first phase of the plan unfolded with chilling precision. During a staged fire in the grasslands, Kovu rescued Kiara, positioning himself as a hero. Despite his deep suspicions, Simba was bound by the laws of the Pride Lands. A life debt had been created. Reluctantly, he allowed Kovu into the Pride Rock, but on a tight leash. He saw the flicker of Scar in the young lioness eyes, and ordered Timon and Pumbaa to watch him constantly. What Simba didn't anticipate was the one thing Zira never prepared Kovu for: genuine connection. Kiara, headstrong and open-hearted, refused to see Kovu as a monster. She saw a troubled soul, not an enemy. She showed him the beauty of the Pride Lands, the harmony of the Circle of Life, a concept completely foreign to his upbringing of survival and dominance. For the first time, Kovu experienced laughter, playfulness, and the warmth of friendship. He began to question everything he had been taught. He and Kiara spent their days exploring, and with every shared sunset, the walls around Kovu's heart began to crumble. He was falling in love, and this terrified him more than any battle. Back in the outlands, Zira grew impatient. Through Vitani's spying, she learned of Kovu's wavering loyalty. Enraged by his betrayal, she decided to accelerate her plan. She ambushed Simba while he was alone with Kovu, framing Kovu for the attack. The trap was perfect. Simba, wounded and seeing Kovu standing over him, believed the worst. The darkness he had always suspected had finally shown its face. He banished Kovu, his roar echoing with the pain of betrayal. Kiara was heartbroken, unable to believe Kovu was capable of such treachery. The Pride Lands were once again divided, teetering on the brink of war. Cast out and alone, Kovu was at a crossroads. He could return to the outlands and face Zira's wrath, or he could forge his own path. The love he felt for Kiara gave him a new kind of strength. He realized his destiny wasn't to be Scar's echo, but to be himself. Meanwhile, Kiara, refusing to accept her father's judgment, defied him and ran away to find Kovu. Their reunion was a powerful moment, a declaration of love that transcended pride and prejudice. They knew they had to return, not to fight, but to unite their prides. As a storm gathered, mirroring the turmoil in their hearts, the two factions met at the border. On one side, Simba and his pride, ready to defend their home. On the other, Zira and her outlanders, thirsty for blood and revenge. The battle was inevitable. Lions clashed with a ferocity born of years of hatred. In the midst of the chaos, Kovu and Kiara leaped between the warring prides, pleading for them to stop. Kiara's words rang out across the battlefield. "We are one." She reminded them that there was no difference between them, only the hate that was tearing them apart. Her plea began to resonate. The lionesses, one by one, stopped fighting. Vitani was the first of the outlanders to cross over, choosing unity over vengeance. The others followed, leaving Zira isolated in her rage. In a final, desperate act, Zira lunged at Simba. Kiara intercepted her, and the two tumbled over a cliff edge into a raging gorge below. As Kiara clung to the cliff, Zira slipped, refusing Kiara's paw and falling to her demise, consumed by the same hatred that had driven her for so long. With Siragona, the war was over. The Outlanders were welcomed back into the Pride Lands, not as enemies, but as family. Simba, humbled and wise, looked at Kovu not as Scar's heir, but as his daughter's chosen mate, and a son in his own right. The rains came, washing away the scars of the past, and nurturing the seeds of a new, unified kingdom. The battle for the bloodline had ended not with a roar of victory, but with the quiet understanding that love, not vengeance, is the true legacy of a king. The circle of life was finally whole again, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Thanks for watching our take on this epic saga. What do you think of Kovu's journey? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from the worlds you love. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what happened after Scar was defeated? We all know Simba took his rightful place as king, and the Pride Lands flourished once more. But the shadows of the past are long, and evil doesn't always die with the villain. What if Scar, the cunning, charismatic usurper, left behind a legacy, not just a memory, but a living, breathing heir, raised in the shadows with a heart full of vengeance? This is the story of Kovu, not the one we know from the movie, but a different kind of prince, a ghost from the Outlands, the one they call Scar's true heir. Our story begins in the desolate Outlands, a place of bones and dust, far from the lush greenery of Pride Rock. Here, a lioness named Zero, Scar's most loyal follower, harbored a burning hatred for Simba. She believed Scar was the rightful king, betrayed and murdered, and in her eyes, Simba was a tyrant who had stolen their future. While the official story tells us she raised Kovu to follow in Scar's paw prints, what if there was another, a secret son, born from a hidden alliance, a cub who carried Scar's very bloodline? Let's call him Nukato, a name whispered only in the darkest corners of the savannah. Nukato was raised on stories of his father's greatness, his brilliant mind, his powerful reign. Zero filled his head with tales of a glorious kingdom stolen by a naive, unworthy prince. Every day, Nukato trained. He learned to hunt, not just for food, but for sport. He learned to fight with a ferocity that even Scar lacked. His claws were sharpened on the bones of fallen prey, his roar echoing the bitter winds of the Outlands. He wasn't just being trained to be a king. He was being forged into a weapon, his sole purpose, to reclaim his father's throne and hunt the king who sat upon it. Unlike the other cubs, Nukato was kept isolated. He was taught that friendship was a weakness and compassion a flaw. His only companions were the hyenas, Scar's old allies, who saw in this young cub the same cunning glint in his father's eyes. They taught him to use the shadows, to strike from the darkness, to exploit every weakness. He mastered the art of manipulation, learning to twist words and emotions just as his father had. He was Scar's mirror image, but younger, stronger, and fueled by a lifetime of pure, distilled rage. Meanwhile, back at Pride Rock, life was good. King Simba ruled with a just and kind heart, and Queen Nala stood by his side. Their daughter Kiara was a free spirit, curious and adventurous. The Pride Lands were a paradise, seemingly untouched by the darkness that brewed just beyond the border. Simba, haunted by his own past, often warned Kiara of the dangers of the Outlands, but he never suspected the true threat that was growing there. He believed the past was buried, but the seeds of vengeance had already taken root. As Nukato came of age, Zira knew the time was right. Her plan was simple, yet diabolical. She wouldn't launch a full-scale invasion, not yet. That was too predictable. Instead, she would use her son's charisma, his deceptive charm, to infiltrate the Pride Lands. Nukato was to stage a chance encounter with Kiara. He would rescue her from a staged danger, presenting himself as a rogue lion with no allegiance, a charming outcast looking for a home. The goal was to get close to the royal family, to earn their trust, especially Simba's. The plan worked perfectly. Nukato, feigning desperation and loneliness, saved Kiara from a wildfire deliberately set by Zira's followers. He played his part flawlessly. He was charming, mysterious, and strong. Kiara, intrigued by this handsome stranger, pleaded with her father to let him stay. Simba was wary. He saw a flicker of something unsettling in the young lion's eyes, a shadow he couldn't quite place. But Nala, ever the voice of reason, convinced him to give Nukato a chance. Every lion deserved a second chance, she argued. just as they had. Reluctantly, Simba agreed. The hunter was now inside the castle walls. Nukato slowly began to weave his web. He impressed the other lions with his hunting skills. He showed respect to Simba, always addressing him as Your Majesty. He spent time with Kiara, listening to her dreams and sharing fabricated stories of his own tragic past. He was the perfect guest, the perfect prodigal son returning to a pride he never knew. He was playing the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Simba, despite his lingering doubts, started to soften. He saw a young lion trying to find his place, and a part of him wanted to believe in the good of others. But Nukato's heart was a block of ice. Every kind word from Simba, every trusting glance from Kiara, only fueled his contempt. He saw them as weak, naive fools. At night, he would sneak to the edge of the Pride Lands to meet with Zira, reporting his progress. He learned the Pride's routines, their patrols, their strengths, and most importantly, their weaknesses. Simba's greatest weakness, Nukato discovered, was his love for his daughter, and that is where he would strike the first blow. The plan was to isolate Simba. Nukato began subtly planting seeds of doubt among the Pride. He'd start rumors, create small conflicts, and then cleverly resolve them, making himself look like a peacemaker while undermining Simba's authority. He orchestrated a scenario where Simba would be lured away from Pride Rock, alone, under the pretense of a crisis at the northern border. It was a trap, and Simba, trusting the information from Nukato, walked right into it. As Simba arrived at the gorge, a chilling sense of déjà vu washed over him. It was here that his own father had died, and as he looked up, he saw him, Nukato, standing on the ledge above, no longer hiding behind a mask of charm. His eyes burned with a familiar green fire, and behind him, the hyenas emerged from the shadows, their laughter echoing off the canyon walls. Zira appeared at Nukato's side, her face a snarl of triumph. "Hello, uncle!" Nukato sneered, using the same chilling term Scar had once used. "Surprised to see me?" The truth hit Simba like a physical blow. This wasn't just some rogue lion. This was Scar's son. The ghost of his past had returned to hunt him. The battle that followed was brutal. Simba, though a powerful and experienced fighter, was outnumbered and caught by surprise. He fought with the fury of a cornered king, but Nukato was relentless, his every move a testament to his vicious training. Just as it seemed Simba was about to be overwhelmed, a roar split the air. It was Kiara. She had grown suspicious of Nukato's behavior and had followed her father. With her were Nala and the rest of the lionesses. The tables had turned. A massive battle erupted in the gorge. Pridelander against Outlander. A war for the soul of the kingdom. Kiara, no longer just a princess, fought bravely beside her father, her courage inspiring the Pride. In the chaos, Simba and Nukato faced off one last time. It was a clash of two legacies. Simba, fighting for love and peace. Nukato, fighting for power and revenge. But as they fought, something unexpected happened. Nukato saw the love between Simba and Kiara, the loyalty of the Pride. The very things he had been taught were weaknesses. For the first time, a crack appeared in his icy heart. He saw not a tyrant, but a father protecting his family. In that moment of hesitation, Simba gained the upper hand. He pinned Nukato, not with a killing blow, but with overwhelming force. "It's over," Simba roared, his voice filled with both anger and sorrow. "This is not your kingdom. The hate will end here." Zira, seeing her son defeated, lunged at Simba in a final, desperate act of madness. But Nukato, in a move that surprised everyone, threw himself in front of Simba, taking the brunt of his own mother's attack. Why did he do it? Was it a final, desperate plea for redemption? Or did he simply realize that a kingdom built on hate could never bring him the glory his father had promised? As he lay dying, he looked at Kiara, and for the first time, his eyes were clear of hatred. The hunter, in his final moments, had understood the king. With Zira gone and their leader fallen, the Outlanders surrendered. The cycle of vengeance was finally broken. The Pride Lands were safe once more. but the victory was bittersweet. It served as a stark reminder that the shadows of the past are never truly gone, and that even the purest hearts must be vigilant against the return of the King's Hunter. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more dailies from the Pride Lands. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the Pride Lands. But we're not just revisiting the classic story we all know and love. We're going to explore a dark, fascinating theory that could change the way you see the Lion King forever. It's a theory that suggests Scar, when in death, may have had the last laugh. This is the story of Simba's curse. So, let's set the scene. Scar's defeated, the hyenas are gone, and Simba takes his rightful place as king. The land is restored, the circle of life is back in balance, and everything seems perfect. Simba and Nala have a beautiful daughter, Kiara, and the future of the Pride Lands looks bright. But what if I told you that Scar's influence didn't end with his reign? What if he left behind a final, terrible act of revenge? To understand this, we need to go back to Scar's final moments. Cornered, defeated, he screams at Simba, "You wouldn't kill your own uncle." But then, in a moment of desperation, he whispers to the hyenas, blaming them for everything. We all know how that turned out. The hyenas, feeling betrayed, turned on Scar and end his life. But what if, in that last, hate-filled breath, Scar uttered a curse? A curse upon Simba and his bloodline. A curse that would ensure his heir would never rule in peace. Now, you might be thinking, a curse? Isn't that a bit far-fetched for the Lion King? Well, let's remember the world we're in. This is a world with mystical mandrills who can communicate with the great kings of the past. A world where the spirits of dead kings can literally form in the clouds and give advice. Magic and spiritual power are very real in the Pride Lands. So, the idea of a dying king's curse isn't so crazy after all. It fits perfectly within the established rules of this universe. So, what is this curse? The theory goes that Scar cursed Simba's heir, dooming them to fall in love with an outsider, an enemy of the Pride Lands, someone who would bring chaos and division, just as Scar himself did. His final revenge would be to watch Simba suffer through the same conflict Mufasa faced. A family torn apart by a forbidden connection. And who is Simba's heir? Kiara. Now let's look at the Lion King too. Simba's pride. The story revolves entirely around Kiara and her forbidden love for Kovu, an outsider. And not just any outsider. Kovu is Scar's hand-picked successor. He was born during Scar's reign and chosen to follow in his paw prints and avenge him. The connection couldn't be more direct. Think about the parallels. Mufasa's brother, Scar, felt like an outsider and brought ruin to the kingdom. Now, Simba's daughter, Kiara, is drawn to a literal outsider. Kovu. The symmetry is almost poetic, isn't it? It's as if history is repeating itself, but with a twisted irony that only a villain like Scar could appreciate. Simba's reaction throughout the second movie is one of extreme paranoia and fear. He's overprotective of Kiara, constantly worried about the outsiders in the shadow of Scar. He says, "Kiara, you don't know him, and he is one of them, Scar's chosen one." Of course, part of this is his own trauma from his past. He lost his father to Scar's treachery and was manipulated by him for years. But what if his fear is amplified by something more? What if, on a subconscious level, he feels the weight of Scar's curse? He sees Kiara's connection to Kovu not just as a youthful mistake, but as a dark prophecy unfolding before his very eyes. Let's look at Kovu. He was literally raised to hate Simba. Zira, his mother and Scar's most loyal follower, filled his head with Scar's ideology of power, entitlement, and revenge. Kovu's entire purpose in life was to infiltrate the Pride Lands, get close to Kiara, and assassinate Simba. The plan was a direct continuation of Scar's war. The curse isn't just making Kiara fall for an outsider, it's making her fall for the perfect weapon designed to destroy her family. And it almost works. The division Kovu's presence creates is immense. The Pridelanders don't trust him. Simba struggles to see past his origins. The tension culminates in a massive battle between the Pridelanders and the outsiders. A civil war that threatens to tear the kingdom apart all over again. Sound familiar? It's exactly the kind of chaos Scar thrived on. From beyond the grave, his will is being enacted. His spirit of division lives on, poisoning the next generation. Even Rafiki, the wise shaman, seems to be fighting against this dark magic. He sees the connection between Kiara and Kovu, and guided by Mufasa's spirit, he actively tries to bring them together. He sings Upendi, a song about love, trying to foster a bond that can overcome the hate they were born into. It is as if the spirits of the good kings are actively working to counteract the curse laid by the evil one. The entire spiritual realm is engaged in a tug-of-war for the soul of the Pride Lands, with Kiara and Kovu as the pawns. Now, of course, love conquers all. Kiara and Kovu's bond proves stronger than the generations of hate. They refuse to fight and show their families that they are one. Zira, unable to let go of her hatred for Simba and her loyalty to Scar, is the one who ultimately falls. The two prides unite, and the circle of life is mended once more. The curse, it would seem, is finally broken. But was it? Kiara did fall for an outsider. The kingdom was brought to the brink of collapse. Simba was forced to relive his worst nightmares, watching his daughter get close to the legacy of the lion who murdered his father. In many ways, the curse succeeded. It didn't achieve its ultimate goal of destroying Simba, but it inflicted incredible pain and suffering. It was Scar's last, desperate act to ensure that even in victory, Simba would never know true peace. He forced Simba to confront his own prejudices and fears, pushing him to the edge. This theory adds an incredible layer of depth to Simba's pride. It transforms it from a simple Romeo and Juliet story with lions into a tale of generational trauma and a battle against a lingering, supernatural evil. It makes Simba's journey even more tragic, and his eventual acceptance of Kovu even more heroic. He isn't just forgiving a former enemy, he's breaking a curse set by his greatest foe. And what about Kion from the Lion Guard? The series takes place between Kiara's first meeting with Kovu and her first hunt. Kion receives the Roar of the Elders, a power that Scar once possessed but lost because he used it for evil. This is another piece of the puzzle. The spirit of the Pride Lands gives Kion this power, perhaps as another defense against Scar's lingering influence. Kion's duty is to protect the Pride Lands and the Circle of Life, and a big part of that involves dealing with the consequences of Scar's reign, including his ghostly return in a volcano. Scar's evil is a persistent force, a stain that can't be easily washed away. So, the next time you watch the Lion King saga, think about this. Scar wasn't just a power-hungry tyrant. He was a master of manipulation, a creature of pure spite. And it is completely in character for him to ensure that his defeat wouldn't be the end of his story. His final revenge wasn't a physical battle, but a psychological and spiritual war waged against Simba's heart and his legacy. The Curse of Simba is a chilling testament to the idea that hate can echo through generations, and that true victory isn't just about winning a fight, but about breaking the cycle of that hate. What do you guys think? Do you believe in Simba's curse? Does it make the story of Simba's pride more powerful? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more theories. Until next time, stay curious. In the heart of the Pride Lands, a shadow lingers, a story untold. We all know the tale of Simba's triumphant return, of his battle against Scar to reclaim his rightful place as king. But what if the battle for the throne was just the beginning? What if the true struggle was not for the crown, but for the very future of the royal bloodline? Today, we delve into a darker, more complex chapter. The awakening of Scar's legacy and Simba's desperate fight to preserve his own. To Lion King 2, Simba's pride introduced us to Kovu, the chosen heir of Scar. But the film only scratched the surface of the turmoil brewing within the Pride Lands. The Outlanders, loyal to Scar's memory, weren't just a band of exiles. They were a movement, a cult of personality built around a fallen king. They believed Scar was the true visionary, unjustly overthrown. Kovu wasn't just a successor. He was a symbol of their stolen glory, indoctrinated from birth to avenge Scar and reclaim the throne. Simba, now a king and a father, is haunted by his past. The scars left by his uncle run deeper than we ever imagined. Every shadow holds a threat. Every stranger is a potential enemy. This isn't just a political struggle, it's a deeply personal one. Simba sees scars, chilling reflection, in Kovu's eyes. He is torn between his duty as a king to protect his pride and his instincts as a father to protect his daughter. Kiara, his paranoia, born from trauma, threatens to create the very division he fears. He builds walls, both physical and emotional, trying to isolate his family from the perceived threat. But in doing so, he risks pushing his own daughter away. The core of this conflict isn't just about two prides clashing. It's a battle of ideologies. On one side, you have Simba's philosophy, rooted in the circle of life, a belief in balance, respect for all creatures, and ruling with a gentle paw. On the other side is Scar's legacy, a doctrine of power, ambition, and survival of the fittest, where the strong take what they want and the weak are left to perish. This isn't a simple case of good versus evil. The Outlanders are driven by desperation. They live in a desolate wasteland, struggling for every scrap of food. Their loyalty to Scar is fueled by a genuine belief that his way would have brought them prosperity. A stark contrast to the hardship they now face. Their anger isn't baseless. It's born from suffering. Kiara and Kovu become the bridge between these two warring worlds. Their forbidden love is more than just a youthful romance. It's a powerful symbol of hope and a direct challenge to the old hatreds. Kiara, embodying the compassionate spirit of Mufasa, refuses to see Kovu as a monster. She sees the individual behind the indoctrination. Kovu, in turn, finds himself torn. He was raised for a single purpose, to kill Simba. But Kiara's kindness and the vibrant life of the Pride Lands show him a different path. A world where strength isn't measured by dominance, but by compassion. Their relationship forces everyone to question what they've been taught. Is bloodline destiny? Or can love and understanding forge a new future, breaking the cycle of vengeance? This story is a powerful exploration of generational trauma. Simba's fear is a direct result of his uncle's betrayal. Zira's hatred is a twisted form of grief and loyalty to Scar. These emotions are passed down to their children, shaping their destinies. Kiara and Kovu's struggle is to break free from the burdens of their parents' past. They have to actively choose a different path to prove that the sins of the father, or the uncle, or the adopted mother do not define the child. This is the true battle for the bloodline. Not about whose genes sit on the throne, but about whether the next generation can heal the wounds of the past, or if they are doomed to repeat them. Imagine the internal conflict for Simba. He fought so hard to escape Scar's shadow, only to find it resurrected in the heart of his own family. He must confront his deepest fears and learn to trust the son of his greatest enemy. It's a profound test of his kingship and his character. Can he lead with wisdom, as his father did? Or will he let fear dictate his actions, becoming the very tyrant he overthrew? The weight on his shoulders is immense. He's not just fighting an external enemy, he's fighting the Scar within himself, the voice of doubt and paranoia that whispers of betrayal at every turn. And what about Kovu? His journey is one of deprogramming. He has to unlearn a lifetime of hatred. Every instinct tells him to follow Zira's plan, to fulfill the destiny Scar laid out for him, but his heart tells him something different. The love he feels for Kiara is a force more powerful than any training or indoctrination. He stands at a crossroads, forced to choose between the path of revenge he was born into and the path of love he has discovered. His decision will not only determine his own fate, but the fate of both prides. He must, in essence, kill the Scar within himself to truly live. The climax isn't just a physical battle, it's the culmination of this ideological war. When Kiara stands between Simba and Zira, she's not just stopping a fight, she's delivering a powerful message. We are one. She's declaring an end to the division, refusing to let the past define their future. It's a moment of profound courage that forces Simba to finally see beyond his fear and prejudice. He sees his daughter, wise beyond her years, and he sees Kovu, who has chosen love over hate. He sees the future. Zira's refusal to accept this new reality, Her inability to let go of her hatred ultimately leads to her demise. She becomes a tragic victim of her own obsession, a final, fading echo of Scar's destructive legacy. In the end, Simba's battle for the bloodline wasn't won by eliminating the threat. It was won by embracing it. By accepting Kovu, Simba didn't just gain he healed a fractured kingdom. He proved that the circle of life is not a rigid, unchanging line of succession, but a dynamic, evolving web of relationships that can grow stronger through forgiveness and unity. The true legacy of a king isn't found in the purity of his bloodline, but in the peace and prosperity of his kingdom. The awakening of Scar's legacy forced Simba to become a better king, a better father, and a better lion, finally breaking the cycle of hate and ensuring a future where all prides could live together as one. What do you think? Was Simba's paranoia justified? Or was he letting his past control him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Pride Lands, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories. Thanks for watching. Hello, fellow Lion King fans, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the Pride Lands. But we're not just rewatching the movie. We're exploring what happened after the credits rolled. The final scene of The Lion King is iconic. Simba ascends Pride Rock, lets out a mighty roar, and the kingdom is restored. The rain washes away the darkness of Scar's reign, and life returns. It's a perfect Disney ending, right? But what if it is not that simple? What if the real battle for the Pride Lands had only just begun? Let's be real. Scar's rule wasn't just a bad phase, it was catastrophic. The movie shows us a desolate, gray landscape, picked clean by the hyenas. This wasn't just a drought, it was the result of a complete ecological collapse. The herds fled, the river dried up, and the very foundation of the circle of life was shattered. Simba's return and the magical rain are symbolic, but in reality, recovery from such devastation would take years, even decades. He didn't just inherit a kingdom. He inherited a wasteland. The first and most critical challenge for the new king wasn't fighting a villain, but fighting famine and restoring the land itself. Think about the immense pressure on Simba. He grew up in a jungle paradise, with a no-worries philosophy. Suddenly, he's king of a broken land, responsible for every hungry lion and thirsty zebra. He has to manage dwindling resources, persuade the exiled herds to return, and oversee the slow, painful process of ecological rebirth. This isn't a task for a warrior. It's a task for a diplomat, an ecologist, and a brilliant strategist. It's a side of leadership the movie doesn't show us, but it's arguably Simba's greatest test. He couldn't just roar his problems away. He had to lead patiently and wisely, day after grueling day. Now, let's talk about the hyenas. They weren't just Scar's minions. They were a massive, starving army. After they turn on Scar, do they just magically disappear? Off course not. They're still in the Pride Lands, leaderless, desperate, and still a significant threat. Simba couldn't just banish them all. That's the kind of tyranny his father stood against, but he couldn't let them stay and continue to destabilize the fragile ecosystem. This presents a huge political and ethical dilemma. Did he try to negotiate? Did he have to fight skirmishes on the borders for years? The Lion Guard series actually touches on this, showing that the hyena problem didn't just vanish. Janja and his clan were a constant thorn in the side of the royal family, a direct legacy of Scar's broken promises and failed leadership. This brings us to the most dangerous part of Scar's legacy: his ideology. Scar didn't just seize power, he fostered a deep-seated resentment within the lionesses. Remember Sarabi's defiance? She wasn't alone. But what about the others? The animated series, The Lion Guard, introduces us to Zira and her followers. The outsiders, these were lionesses fiercely loyal to Scar, who believed he was the rightful king and that Simba was a usurper. They were exiled to the outlands, but their hatred festered, raising their children, like Kovu, to be instruments of revenge. This is Scar's unfinished war. It wasn't a war fought with claws and teeth alone, but with ideas. It was a civil war of loyalty and belief that threatened to tear the pride apart from the inside. Zira's plan in The Lion King 2. Simba's pride is the ultimate culmination of Scar's influence. She manipulates Kovu, Scar's chosen heir, to infiltrate Simba's family and assassinate him. This isn't just a random power grab. It's a carefully plotted act of political vengeance decades in the making. It shows that, even in death, Scar's shadow loomed large over the Pride lands. His true legacy wasn't the barren landscape, but the poison of division and hatred he planted in the hearts of his followers. Simba wasn't just fighting Zira's army, he was fighting his uncle's ghost. And what about Simba himself? The trauma of his past couldn't have just vanished. He saw his father die, was manipulated into believing it was his fault, and spent his formative years in exile. Returning as king, he's not the carefree cub he once was, nor is he the confident ruler Mufasa was. He's a survivor, plagued by self-doubt and fear. This is most evident in his relationship with his own daughter, Kiara. He is fiercely overprotective, constantly seeing the shadow of Scar and the threat of the past in every corner. His fear of history repeating itself almost blinds him to the present. He struggles to trust Kovu, an outsider, just as his own pride once struggled to accept him. Simba's personal battle with his own PTSD is a central conflict. He has to learn to rule not from a place of fear, but from a place of wisdom and trust, just as his father did. Ultimately, the resolution to Scar's unfinished war doesn't come from Simba's strength, but from Kiara's wisdom. Her famous line, "We are one," is the true antidote to Scar's philosophy of division. She understands what Simba, in his fear, and Zira, in her hatred, could not. That the only way to heal the pride is to come together. It's Kiara who truly breaks the cycle of violence and revenge that Scar started. She proves that the future of the Pride lands lies not in clinging to the grievances of the past, but in forgiveness and unity. This is the final victory over Scar. His war ends when the lions he divided choose to be a single pride again. So, when we look back at Simba's reign, it's far more complex and challenging than that final, triumphant roar suggests. He inherited a kingdom on the brink of collapse, faced down a starving army, battled a cult of loyalist fanatics, and struggled with his own deep-seated trauma. He wasn't just a king, he was a rebuilder, a peacemaker, and a survivor. His real test of character wasn't defeating Scar on Pride Rock, but spending a lifetime healing the deep wounds his uncle left behind. It's a story of resilience, forgiveness, and the long, hard road to true peace. What do you think was Simba's greatest challenge as king? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Pride lands, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the Pride lands. But we're not just revisiting the classic story we all know and love. We're going to explore a dark, fascinating theory that could change the way you see the Lion King forever. It's a theory that suggests Scar in death may have had the last laugh. This is the story of Simba's curse. So, let's set the scene. Scar's defeated, the hyenas are gone, and Simba takes his rightful place as king. The land is restored, the circle of life is back in balance, and everything seems perfect. Simba and Nala have a beautiful daughter, Kiara, and the future of the Pride lands looks bright. But what if I told you that Scar's influence didn't end with his reign? What if he left behind a final, terrible act of revenge? To understand this, we need to go back to Scar's final moments. Cornered, defeated, he screams at Simba, "You wouldn't kill your own uncle." But then, in a moment of desperation, he whispers to the hyenas, blaming them for everything. We all know how that turned out. The hyenas, feeling betrayed, turned on Scar and end his life. But what if, in that last, hate-filled breath, Scar uttered a curse? A curse upon Simba and his bloodline. A curse that would ensure his heir would never rule in peace. Now, you might be thinking, a curse? Isn't that a bit far-fetched for the Lion King? Well, let's remember the world we're in. This is a world with mystical mandrills who can communicate with the great kings of the past. A world where the spirits of dead kings can literally form in the clouds and give advice. Magic and spiritual power are very real in the Pride lands. So, the idea of a dying king's curse isn't so crazy after all. It fits perfectly within the established rules of this universe. So, what is this curse? The theory goes that Scar cursed Simba's heir, dooming them to fall in love with an outsider, an enemy of the Pride Lands, someone who would bring chaos and division, just as Scar himself did. His final revenge would be to watch Simba suffer through the same conflict Mufasa faced. A family torn apart by a forbidden connection. And who is Simba's heir? Kiara. Now let's look at the Lion King too. Simba's pride. The story revolves entirely around Kiara and her forbidden love for Kovu, an outsider. And not just any outsider. Kovu is Scar's hand-picked successor. He was born during Scar's reign and chosen to follow in his paw prints and avenge him. The connection couldn't be more direct. Think about the parallels. Mufasa's brother, Scar, felt like an outsider and brought ruin to the kingdom. Now, Simba's daughter, Kiara, is drawn to a literal outsider. Kovu. The symmetry is almost poetic, isn't it? It's as if history is repeating itself, but with a twisted irony that only a villain like Scar could appreciate. Simba's reaction throughout the second movie is one of extreme paranoia and fear. He's overprotective of Kiara, constantly worried about the outsiders in the shadow of Scar. He says, "Kiara, you don't know him." And he is one of them, Scar's chosen one. Of course, part of this is his own trauma from his past. He lost his father to Scar's treachery and was manipulated by him for years. But what if his fear is amplified by something more? What if, on a subconscious level, he feels the weight of Scar's curse? He sees Kiara's connection to Kovu not just as a youthful mistake, but as a dark prophecy unfolding before his very eyes. Let's look at Kovu. He was literally raised to hate Simba. Zira, his mother and Scar's most loyal follower, filled his head with Scar's ideology of power, entitlement, and revenge. Kovu's entire purpose in life was to infiltrate the Pride Lands, get close to Kiara, and assassinate Simba. The plan was a direct continuation of Scar's war. The curse isn't just making Kiara fall for an outsider. It's making her fall for the perfect weapon designed to destroy her family. And it almost works. The division Kovu's presence creates is immense. The Pridelanders don't trust him. Simba struggles to see past his origins. The tension culminates in a massive battle between the Pridelanders and the outsiders. A civil war that threatens to tear the kingdom apart all over again. Sound familiar? It's exactly the kind of chaos Scar thrived on. From beyond the grave, his will is being enacted. His spirit of division lives on, poisoning the next generation. Even Rafiki, the wise shaman, seems to be fighting against this dark magic. He sees the connection between Kiara and Kovu and, guided by Mufasa's spirit, he actively tries to bring them together. He sings Upendi, a song about love, trying to foster a bond that can overcome the hate they were born into. It is as if the spirits of the good kings are actively working to counteract the curse laid by the evil one. The entire spiritual realm is engaged in a tug-of-war for the soul of the Pride Lands, with Kiara and Kovu as the pawns. Now, of course, love conquers all. Kiara and Kovu's bond proves stronger than the generations of hate. They refuse to fight and show their families that they are one. Zira, unable to let go of her hatred for Simba and her loyalty to Scar, is the one who ultimately falls. The two prides unite, and the circle of life is mended once more. The curse, it would seem, is finally broken. But was it? Kiara did fall for an outsider. The kingdom was brought to the brink of collapse. Simba was forced to relive his worst nightmares, watching his daughter get close to the legacy of the lion who murdered his father. In many ways, the curse succeeded. It didn't achieve its ultimate goal of destroying Simba, but it inflicted incredible pain and suffering. It was Scar's last, desperate act to ensure that even in victory, Simba would never know true peace. He forced Simba to confront his own prejudices and fears, pushing him to the edge. This theory adds an incredible layer of depth to Simba's pride. It transforms it from a simple Romeo and Juliet story with lions into a tale of generational trauma and a battle against a lingering, supernatural evil. It makes Simba's journey even more tragic, and his eventual acceptance of Kovu even more heroic. He isn't just forgiving a former enemy. He's breaking a curse set by his greatest foe. And what about Kion from the Lion Guard? The series takes place between Kiara's first meeting with Kuvu and her first hunt. Kion receives the Roar of the Elders, a power that Scar once possessed but lost because he used it for evil. This is another piece of the puzzle. The spirit of the Pride Lands gives Kion this power, perhaps as another defense against Scar's lingering influence. Kion's duty is to protect the Pride Lands and the Circle of Life, and a big part of that involves dealing with the consequences of Scar's reign, including his ghostly return in a volcano. Scar's evil is a persistent force, a stain that can't be easily washed away. So, the next time you watch the Lion King saga, think about this. Scar wasn't just a power-hungry tyrant. He was a master of manipulation, a creature of pure spite. And it as completely in character for him to ensure that his defeat wouldn't be the end of his story. His final revenge wasn't a physical battle, but a psychological and spiritual war waged against Simba's heart and his legacy. The Curse of Simba is a chilling testament to the idea that hate can echo through generations. And that true victory isn't just about winning a fight, but about breaking the cycle of that hate. What do you guys think? Do you believe in Simba's curse? Does it make the story of Simba's pride more powerful? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more theories. Until next time, stay curious. Hey everyone, and welcome back. We all know the Lion King, right? The epic story of Simba, his journey to reclaim the throne, and the defeat of his evil uncle, Scar. But what if I told you that the story didn't end there? What if Scar's influence, his very essence, returned in a way you never expected? Today, we're diving deep into the darkest secret of the Lion King universe, the return of Scar. Now, you might be thinking, wait, I saw Scar get taken down by the hyenas at the end of the movie. And you're right, he was gone, ... Or so we thought. The official continuation of the story isn't in a big screen movie, but in the hit animated series, Asterisk, The Lion Guard Asterisk. This show, which follows Simba's second-born Kion, is where things get really interesting and, frankly, a little dark. So how does a character who was very clearly defeated make a comeback? The answer lies in a mix of ancient magic, blind ambition, and a very, very angry Cobra. In Asterisk, The Lion Guard Asterisk, we're introduced to a new villain, a cunning cobra named Ush. For a while, he's just a minor annoyance, constantly getting trampled by Kion and his friends. But resentment builds. Oshari feels disrespected, overlooked, and he starts to crave power. It's this desire that leads him down a dark path, straight to the heart of a volcano. This isn't just any volcano, it's the lair of the hyenas, and it holds a powerful, dark secret. Ushari learns of a ritual that can summon the spirits of past evil lions from the Pride Lands. And who is the most legendary evil lion of all? You guessed it. Scar. Guided by the mischievous Gecko Janjo, Ushari performs the ritual. He needs a special staff, the Bakura staff, and he has to throw it into the volcano at the right moment. By doing this, he successfully summons the spirit of Scar, but Scar doesn't return in his physical body. He comes back as a fiery spirit, a giant, burning specter within the volcanoes. Smoke and lava. This isn't the charming, witty Scar we remember from the first movie. This is Scar stripped of all his charisma, leaving only pure rage, vengeance, and a burning desire to destroy the Pride Lands and Simba's family once and for all. His presence literally scorches the Outlands, and his influence begins to spread like a disease. From his volcanic throne, Scar masterminds a grand army of villains. He unites all the Outlanders who have a grudge against the royal family. Janja's hyena clan, Oshari the Cobra, a crocodile float, led by the formidable Hiburi, a flock of vultures, and even a skink army. It's an all-star team of Disney villains, all united under one fiery banner. Scar's plan is simple but devastating. A full-scale invasion of the Pride Lands. What makes this return so dark is how Scar manipulates everyone around him. He plays on their fears, their insecurities, and their thirst for power. He promises them glory and control, but in reality, They are just pawns in his game of revenge. He doesn't care about them. He only cares about seeing Simba suffer and the Pride Lands burn. This is Scar at his most ruthless, with nothing left to lose. The war for the Pride Lands is brutal. Scar's army launches attack after attack. They try to cut off water sources, set fires, and create chaos at every turn. It pushes Kion and the Lion Guard to their absolute limits. The stakes are higher than ever before. This isn't just about stopping a few troublemakers. It's about saving their home from total destruction, orchestrated by a malevolent spirit. One of the most chilly moments is when Kion finally confronts Scar. Kion, who possesses the legendary roar of the Elders, believes he can simply use his power to blow the spirit away. But Scar just laughs. He reveals a horrifying truth. The roar of the Elders is what gave him this form in the first place. When Kion used the roar in anger inside the volcano, it was that same powerful magic that allowed Scar's spirit to be summoned. Kion's own power was twisted and used against him. This revelation is a huge blow to Kion. He learns that his greatest strength can also be a source of great darkness if not controlled. It's a powerful lesson about the nature of power and the importance of emotional discipline. The final confrontation isn't just a physical battle. It's a battle of wills and ideology. So, how do you defeat a ghost made of fire and rage? The answer isn't with brute force. Kion realizes he can't just roar Scar away. Instead, he has to use the roar to summon the one thing that can truly judge Scar. The great kings of the past. Kion uses his power not to destroy, but to bring forth justice. The sky opens up, and the spirits of the great lions, including Mufasa, appear in the clouds. They use their power to rain down on the volcano, extinguishing Scar's fiery form and banishing his spirit for good. They essentially pass judgment on him, ending his reign of terror once and for all. It's an incredibly satisfying and symbolic ending. Scar, who was so obsessed with being king, is ultimately judged and defeated by the true kings he always despised. It proves that true power comes from justice and righteousness, not from anger and destruction. This storyline from the Lion Guard *, adds a whole new layer to the Lion King saga. It shows that the consequences of evil can linger long after a villain is gone, and that new generations must always be ready to face the ghosts of the past. It's a darker, more complex story that elevates Scar from a simple, power-hungry villain to a truly terrifying, supernatural threat. So, the next time you watch The Lion King *, and see Scar fall, remember his story doesn't quite end there. His spirit returned, fueled by pure hatred, and it took a new generation of heroes to finally put him to rest. What do you guys think of this plot twist? Did you know Scar came back? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite stories. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most heart-wrenching moments in cinematic history, a scene that has haunted our childhoods for decades. We're talking about the day Simba fell, but we're going to look at it from a perspective we rarely consider. Through the eyes of Scar, what was going through his mind? What was the promise he made to himself? And how did he justify the ultimate betrayal? Let's set the scene. The Pride Lands are a kingdom of balance, ruled by the just and mighty Mufasa. His brother, Scar, lives in the shadows, consumed by jealousy and a thirst for power. From the very beginning, Scar sees Simba not as a nephew, but as an obstacle. The new prince represents everything Scar has been denied. The throne, the respect, the future. This isn't just sibling rivalry. It's a deep-seated resentment that has festered for years. Scar's promise wasn't made on the day Mufasa died. It was a silent vow he made to himself long before. A promise that he, by wit and by force, would one day claim what he believed was rightfully his. He saw Mufasa's reign not as just, but as a performance of brute strength over intellectual superiority. In his own twisted mind, Scar believed he was the rightful heir, the one with the brains to truly lead. He probably told himself that Mufasa was too sentimental, too bound by the circle of life. A philosophy Scar openly mocked. The plan to eliminate both Mufasa and Simba was diabolical genius. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was a carefully orchestrated plot. The wildebeest stampede was the perfect weapon, chaotic, untraceable, and powerful enough to take down even a king. Scar lures Simba into the gorge with a lie, a promise of a surprise from his father. This manipulation of a child's trust is the first layer of his depravity. He's not just targeting his brother, he's weaponizing his nephew's innocence against him. Think about that moment. Scar is perched on the cliff, watching the chaos unfold. He sees Mufasa, a symbol, everything he despises, fighting desperately to save his son. Does Scar feel a flicker of doubt? A pang of familial love? I don't think so. At this point, his promise to himself has consumed him. Every beat of the stampede is a drumbeat, marching him closer to the throne. He is the puppet master, and everything is going according to plan. When Mufasa is clinging to the cliff edge, begging his brother for help, we get that iconic, chilling line. Long live the king. This isn't just a farewell. It's a declaration. It's the moment Scar's internal promise becomes an external reality. He's not just killing Mufasa. He's killing an era. He's shattering the old world to build his own. The look in his eyes is one of cold, calculated triumph. He has waited his entire life for this. Now, let's talk about Simba. After Mufasa falls, Scar finds the terrified cub next to his father's body. This is where Scar's cruelty reaches its peak. He could have just killed Simba right there, but that's not his style. It's not enough to win. He has to utterly destroy his enemies, mentally and emotionally. He twists the narrative, convincing Simba that the entire tragedy is his fault. If it weren't for you, he'd still be alive, he whispers. This is psychological warfare. He's planting a seed of guilt and shame that will haunt Simba for years. By telling Simba to run away and never return, Scar is achieving two things. First, he avoids getting his own paws dirty with the final act, maintaining a twisted sense of plausible deniability. Second, and more importantly, he exiles the true king, ensuring there's no one left to challenge his claim. He even sends his hyena henchmen to finish the job, covering all his bases. He believes he has won, that his promise has been fulfilled. The throne is his. But here's the irony. Scar's promise was built on a foundation of lies and destruction, and that is exactly what his reign becomes. He promised himself a glorious kingdom, but his actions lead the Pride Lands to ruin. The balance Mufasa works so hard to maintain is destroyed. The land withers, the herds move on, and the kingdom starves under his tyrannical rule. Scar got the power he craved, but he had no idea how to wield it for anything other than his own selfish gain. The day Simba fell was not just the day a king died, it was the day a kingdom began to crumble. Scar's promise was a selfish one, born from bitterness and ego. He believed he was destined for greatness, but he only brought desolation. He saw himself as the intelligent, deserving ruler. But in reality, he was just a destructive force, incapable of building anything that could last. And that's the ultimate tragedy of Scar. He achieved his life's ambition, only to find it was hollow. He sat on the throne, but he was never a true king. The ghost of his promise, and the ghost of his brother, haunted him until the very end. It's a powerful lesson about the nature of power, ambition, and the consequences of letting darkness consume you. What do you guys think? Was there ever a moment where Scar could have turned back? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-diving deep into the Pride Lands to explore one of cinema's most iconic characters, Simba. We all know the story of the cub who would be king. But what if I told you the most defining force in Simba's life wasn't his father, Mufasa, but his villainous uncle, Scar? It might sound controversial, but stick with me. We're going to uncover how Scar's shadow loomed over every stage of Simba's journey, from his carefree childhood to his reluctant return and eventual reign. This isn't just about a hero versus a villain. It's about how a legacy of trauma and manipulation can forge a king. Let's start at the beginning. When we first meet Simba, he's a bright-eyed, adventurous cub, filled with the promise of his royal destiny. His world is perfect. He has a powerful and loving father in Mufasa, a wise mentor, and the entire pride lands as his future kingdom. He sings about how he just can't wait to be king, and at that point, his understanding of kingship is all about power and getting his own way. It's an innocent, childlike perspective, shaped entirely by Mufasa's benevolent rule. But lurking in the shadows is Scar, Mufasa's bitter and cunning brother. From the very first scene, Scar begins his subtle campaign of manipulation. He sees Simba not as a nephew, but as an obstacle. Think about their first real interaction. Scar preys on Simba's curiosity and desire to prove his bravery, planting the seed of the elephant graveyard in his mind. He cleverly frames it as a test of courage, a place only the bravest lions go. For a cub desperate to impress his dad and live up to his title, this is irresistible bait. Scar isn't just being a bad uncle, he's actively grooming Simba for a fatal mistake. He is exploiting the very qualities Mufasa is trying to nurture: bravery and curiosity, and twisting them into tools for his own sinister plot. This early manipulation sets the stage for everything that follows. Then comes the single most traumatic event of Simba's life: the stampede. This is Scar's masterpiece of psychological warfare. He orchestrates the entire disaster, lures Simba into the gorge, and murders but he doesn't stop there. The truly diabolical part is how he convinces Simba that it was all his fault. If it weren't for you, he'd still be alive. Scar hisses, branding the young cub with an unbearable weight of guilt. For a child, a father's death is devastating enough. To believe you caused it, that's a soul-crushing burden. Scar doesn't just kill the king, he psychologically breaks the air. He steals Simba's father, his home, and his very identity, replacing it with shame and fear. He tells Simba to run away and never return, and Simba, a traumatized child, obeys without question. This is the moment Scar's shadow truly falls over Simba, a shadow that will follow him all the way into exile. So, Simba flees to the jungle, and on the surface, it seems like he's escaped. He finds Timon and Pumbaa and adopts their philosophy of Hakuna Matata. No worries. This isn't just a catchy song, it's a coping mechanism. The jungle becomes his sanctuary, a place where he can forget his past, his responsibilities, and most importantly, his guilt. He grows from a cub to a magnificent adult lion, seemingly carefree and happy. But is he truly free? Not at all. Hakuna Matata is a denial of reality, not an acceptance of it. He's not processing his trauma, he's burying it. Every time he laughs and swings on a vine, he's actively running from the memory of his father's death and the lies Scar fed him. His entire young adult life is a reaction to Scar's manipulation. He has abandoned his identity as a prince and a future king because Scar made him believe he was unworthy of it. The shadow is still there, dictating his every choice, even in paradise. The jungle life represents a complete abdication of the lessons Mufasa taught him. Remember the circle of life, the idea that everyone has a place and a purpose. Simba has rejected that entirely. He's living outside the circle, for himself alone. This is exactly what Scar would have wanted. A weak, exiled, and purposeless Simba poses no threat to his reign, even hundreds of miles away. Scar's influence is so profound that it has kept the rightful king from even considering his destiny. Simba isn't living, he's hiding. The shadow of Scar has turned the once proud prince into a self-imposed exile, content with a life of insects and leisure because it is easier than confronting the ghost of his past. Then, destiny comes calling in the form of Nala. Her arrival shatters Simba's carefully constructed paradise. She brings news of the Pride Lands, devastation under Scar's rule. The lush kingdom is now a barren wasteland. This is the first time Simba is forced to confront the real-world consequences of his absence. Nala represents his past and his duty, reminding him of who he was born to be. But look at his initial reaction. He refuses. "You can't go back," he says. But he's really talking to himself. The guilt and fear that Scar instilled in him are still a powerful prison. He argues with Nala, projecting his own insecurities. He hasn't forgotten his past. He's terrified of it. This is where Rafiki steps in. The wise mandrill doesn't just tell Simba to go back. He helps him confront the past head-on. The past can hurt, Rafiki says, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. This is the turning point. It's the first time anyone has offered Simba a way to deal with his trauma besides ignoring it. And then, of course, Mufasa's spirit appears in the clouds. "Remember who you are," he commands. This is the moment Simba finally begins to break free from Scar's psychological grip. He realizes he's been running from Mufasa's son, not just from Scar's lie. He has to reclaim his identity, not for revenge, but to restore the circle of life. His return isn't just a physical journey home. It's a psychological battle to step out of the shadow and into the light of his own legacy. When Simba finally returns to Pride Rock, he's not the same cub who left. He's an adult, strong and determined. But the final confrontation with Scar is what truly defines his transformation. The fight isn't just a physical clash for the throne. It's a battle for the truth. Scar, ever the manipulator, tries to use the same old trick. He once again accuses Simba of being responsible for Mufasa's death, this time in front of the entire pride. And for a moment, you see the old fear and guilt flash in Simba's eyes. He falters. This shows just how deep that wound is. The shadow of Scar's lie has never truly left him. But then comes the climax. Backed into a corner, Scar makes his fatal mistake. He whispers the truth to Simba. "I killed Mufasa." The sheer rage and vindication that erupt from Simba are electrifying. This is the moment the shadow is finally, violently lifted. The lie that has defined his entire life is shattered. It's not just about avenging his father anymore. It's about reclaiming his own innocence. The subsequent fight is Simba finally fighting for himself, for his truth, for his rightful place, free from the weight of Scar's manipulation. When he finally casts Scar from Pride Rock, he isn't just defeating a tyrant. He is banishing the ghost that has haunted him since childhood. He is finally, truly free. So, as Simba takes his place atop Pride Rock and lets out that triumphant roar, we see a king who has been forged in the fire of trauma and deceit. His reign will be fundamentally different from what it would have been if Mufasa had lived. Mufasa would have raised a king who understood duty and honor. Scar, inadvertently, created a king who understands loss, empathy, and the true cost of failure. Simba knows what it's like to hit rock bottom, to live in shame, and to run from responsibility. This experience gives him a depth and wisdom he never would have had otherwise. He has learned the hard way that Hakuna Matata is a comforting lie, and that true peace comes from facing your past and embracing your place in the circle of life. In the end, while Mufasa gave Simba his title and his principles, it was Scar's shadow that shaped the Manand. The king he became, Scar's villainy provided the ultimate test, forcing Simba to not just inherit the throne, but to truly earn it. He had to conquer his inner demons before he could conquer the external one. And that's what makes his story so powerful. It is a testament to the idea that our greatest adversaries can often be our most profound teachers, and that true strength is found not in avoiding the shadows, but in learning to step through them and into the light. What do you guys think? Was Scar the most important influence on Simba's journey? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. In the heart of the Pride Lands, a story of two brothers unfolds, a tale as old as time itself. One, a king destined for greatness. The other, a prince consumed by shadow, Mufasa and Scar. Their rivalry wasn't just a simple sibling squabble. It was the spark that ignited a firestorm, a conflict that would ripple through generations and redefine the very soul of their kingdom. This isn't just a story about good versus evil. It's a deep dive into jealousy, ambition, and the heavy weight of legacy. Let's rewind. Mufasa was the firstborn, the heir apparent, strong, charismatic, and wise. He embodied the ideal king. Everything seemed to come naturally to him. He was respected, admired, and loved by all. And then there was Taka, later known as Scar. As the younger brother, he was forever living in Mufasa's shadow. The throne, the power, the glory, it was all promised to Mufasa, leaving Scar with what? Scraps? This deep-seated feeling of being second best, of being overlooked, planted a bitter seed in his heart. It's a classic story of the spare heir, a narrative we've seen time and time again in history and fiction. the younger sibling who feels perpetually cheated by birthright. The story goes that Skara got his infamous mark, not from some noble battle, but from a treacherous scheme gone wrong. He tried to manipulate a herd of buffalo to tarnish Mufasa's reputation, but the plan backfired, leaving him with a permanent reminder of his failure and his resentment. He renamed himself Scar, wearing his bitterness for all to see. It was a declaration. He was no longer just the king's brother. He was a being defined by his wound, both physical and emotional. This moment was pivotal. It cemented his identity as an outcast, forever marked by his ambition and jealousy. When Simba was born, any sliver of hope Scar might have had for the throne vanished. This tiny, perfect cub was now the sole obstacle between him and the crown. Mufasa's joy was Scar's despair. You can see it in his eyes during the presentation ceremony. While the entire kingdom celebrates the new prince, Scar sulks in the shadows. He wasn't just a disgruntled uncle. He was a predator watching his prey, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His intellect, his cunning, these were his weapons. When Mufasa had brawn, Scar had brains, and he was prepared to use them for the darkest of purposes. Scar's manipulation of young Simba is nothing short of Machiavellian. He preys on the cub's innocence, his curiosity, and his desire to prove his bravery. The elephant graveyard scene is a masterclass in psychological warfare. Scar dangles the forbidden fruit, knowing full well that Simba's adventurous spirit won't be able to resist. He presents danger as a rite of passage, a way for Simba to be more like his powerful father. Only the bravest lions go there, he teases, planting a seed of reckless ambition. He's not just putting Simba in harm's way. He's testing the waters, gauging just how far he can push the cub and, by extension, how vulnerable Mufasa truly is. And then comes the ultimate betrayal. The stampede. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was a meticulously orchestrated plot. Scar used his alliance with the hyenas, the outcasts of the Pride Lands, to create a crisis he could control. He lures Simba into the gorge, a perfect trap. Then, he alerts Mufasa, playing the part of the concerned brother. The genius of his plan lies in its cruelty. He forces Mufasa to choose between his own life and his son's, knowing Mufasa would never hesitate to save Simba. The moment Mufasa hangs from the cliff edge, pleading for his brother's help, is one of the most chilling moments in cinematic history. Scar looks down, his eyes cold and devoid of any empathy. "Long live the king," he sneers, before plunging his claws into his brother's paws and sending him to his death. This single act of fratricide shatters the natural order. It's the point of no return. Scar has achieved his lifelong goal, but at a terrible, soul-crushing cost. The sky itself seems to darken as he ascends the throne. But killing the king wasn't enough. The bloodline had to be severed. Scar's next move is just as cruel. He convinces Simba that he is responsible for his own father's death. He twists the young cub's grief and confusion into guilt, a burden so heavy that it forces Simba into exile. "Run away, Simba," he commands. "Run away and never return." It's a brilliant, wicked strategy. By making Simba flee, he eliminates the rightful heir without having to get his own paws dirty again. He has cleared the board, leaving the path to the throne completely open. With Simba gone, and Mufasa dead, Scar's reign begins, and it is a disaster. The Pride Lands, once vibrant and full of life, wither under his rule. Scar is a taker, not a giver. He allows the hyenas to overrun the kingdom, and their insatiable hunger throws the circle of life completely out of balance. The herds move on, the grass dies, the water dries up. The kingdom becomes a mirror of its king, barren, desolate, and consumed by darkness. Scar's rule proves that leadership isn't just about power, it's about responsibility. He had the crown, but he lacked the heart of a true king. He was so focused on what he felt he was owed that he never considered what he owed to his people and his land. Meanwhile, Simba, living in self-imposed exile, tries to forget his past. He adopts the philosophy of Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. It's a coping mechanism, a way to numb the pain and guilt that haunt him. He lives a carefree life with Timon and Pumbaa, detached from his responsibilities and his identity. But you can't run from who you are forever. The past has a way of catching up with you. His reflection in the water shows not a carefree young lion, but the face of his father. The ghost of Mufasa is always with him. The turning point comes when Nala, his childhood friend, finds him. She brings news of the devastation in the Pride Lands and reminds him of his duty. But Rafiki, the wise old mandrill, who truly forces Simba to confront his demons. He leads Simba to a vision of Mufasa in the stars. Remember who you are. His father's voice booms from the heavens. You are my son, and the one true king. This is the moment Simba's journey comes full circle. He must stop running from his past, and instead learn from it. He must embrace his destiny, not as a burden, but as a duty to his father's memory and to his people. The final confrontation is epic. Simba returns to a skeletal Pride Rock, a shadow of its former glory. The battle that ensues is not just for the throne, it's a battle for the soul of the kingdom. It's the new generation confronting the sins of the old. Simba versus Scar. Light versus shadow. The rightful heir versus the usurper. The fight is brutal, but it's the truth that lands the final blow. As they battle atop Pride Rock, Scar, in a moment of cowardice, tries to blame the hyenas. But Simba has learned from his uncle's manipulative tactics. He forces Scar to confess his ultimate crime to the Pride. I killed Mufasa. The revelation shatters Scar's remaining authority. The lioness has turned on him, and even his hyena allies, whom he so casually betrayed, abandon him. In the end, Scar is not defeated by Simba's strength, but by his own lies and treachery. He is consumed by the very flames he helped ignite, and devoured by the hungry followers he could no longer control. It's a fittingly poetic end for a king who ruled through fear and deceit. His own dark ambitions became his undoing. With Scargona, the rain begins to fall, washing away the dust and decay of his reign. It's a baptism for the Pride Lands, a symbol of cleansing and rebirth. Simba takes his rightful place on Pride Rock, and with his roar, he restores a circle of life. The kingdom begins to heal. The grass grows green again, the herds return, and life flourishes once more. Simba has not just reclaimed his throne. He has redeemed his father's legacy and reforged his own. He learned that being a king isn't about power or proving your bravery, but about balance, responsibility, and understanding that we are all connected in the great circle of life. The story of Simba and Scar is more than just a cartoon. It's a powerful allegory about family, betrayal, and the path to redemption. It shows us that true strength comes not from avoiding our past, but from facing it. It teaches us that a true leader serves their people, while a tyrant serves only himself. The bloodline was tainted by jealousy and murder, but in the end, it was reborn through courage, truth, and a son's love for his father. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content. Have you ever wondered what was going through Simba's mind during his darkest hour? We all know the story. The tragic stampede, the heartbreaking loss of Mufasa, and the cunning manipulation by his uncle. Scar, but let us dive deeper into the psychological torment and the master plan that Scar had been cooking up for years. This wasn't just a spur-of-a-moment power grab. It was a cold, calculated plot to seize the throne. And poor, innocent Simba was just a pawn in his wicked game. So, let's set the scene. The Pride Lands are flourishing under Mufasa's wise rule. He's a king, respected by all, a powerful leader, and a loving father. He's teaching his son, Simba, about the circle of life, preparing him for his future as king. Everything seems perfect, but in the shadows, a storm is brewing. Scar, Mufasa's younger brother, is consumed by jealousy. He was next in line for the throne until Simba was born, and he's never forgiven his brother for it. Every day, he watches Mufasa and Simba, his resentment growing, festering into a truly evil ambition. Scar's plan wasn't just about getting rid of Mufasa. It had to be clean, and it had to ensure he could take power without any opposition. That meant Simba had to go too. But how? He couldn't just challenge Mufasa to a fight. Mufasa was stronger. He couldn't just get rid of Simba. The Pride would never accept him. No. His plan had to be diabolically clever. He needed to create a situation where Mufasa's death looked like a tragic accident, and he needed a way to remove Simba from the picture permanently. This is where the hyenas come in, the Hyena Senzi, Bonsai, and Edwar outcasts, living in the desolate elephant graveyard. They were hungry, desperate, and easily manipulated. Scar saw them as the perfect tools. He promises them a future where their bellies are always full, a place in the New World Order he plans to create. He sings his chilling song, Be Prepared, outlining his vision. He isn't just recruiting henchmen, he's building an army, feeding their desperation and turning it into loyalty to him. This alliance was the first critical piece of his puzzle. Now, let's talk about the first attempt. Scar cleverly preys on Simba's curiosity and his desire to prove his bravery. He casually mentions the elephant graveyard, knowing full well it's a forbidden, dangerous place. He plants the seed, telling Simba it's a place only the bravest lions go. It's a brilliant piece of reverse psychology. Of course, the adventurous and slightly arrogant young prince takes the bait. He convinces Nala to go with him, ditching Zazu and heading straight into the trap. When Simba and Nala arrive, they're met by the cackling trio of hyenas. It's terrifying. They're cornered, outnumbered, and about to become a meal. But this wasn't the main event for Scar. This was just a test run, a way to see how Mufasa would react. And react he does. Mufasa arrives in the nick of time, a roaring force of nature, and easily defeats the hyenas. He's furious with Simba, but also deeply relieved. This incident serves two purposes for Scar. It confirms the hyenas' incompetence on their own, and more importantly, it gives him a new, more sinister idea. He sees Mufasa's love for Simba, his paternal instinct to protect his son at all costs, and he realizes he can use that love against him. This is where the plan becomes truly monstrous. Scar leads Simba to a gorge, telling him his father has a marvelous surprise for him. He tells Simba to wait, practicing his little roar. It's a moment of innocent excitement for Simba, but for us, watching it, it's filled with dread. Simba has no idea he's being positioned as bait. Meanwhile, Scar signals the hyenas, who are waiting on the ridge above. They start the wildebeest stampede, sending thousands of panicked animals thundering directly towards the young prince. Think about the sheer terror of that moment for Simba. A tiny cub facing an unstoppable river of hooves and horns. His little roars are swallowed by the thunderous noise. It's pure chaos. Scar, ever the manipulator, rushes to Mufasa, feigning panic. Simba, down in the gorge. Stampede. He knows exactly which buttons to press. Mufasa doesn't hesitate for a second. He plunges into the chaos, his only thought to save his son. The rescue is heroic and desperate. Mufasa battles the current of wildebeest, finally managing to toss Simba to safety on a ledge. But he's weakened, struggling to climb the steep canyon walls himself, and who should appear at the top but his own brother, Scar Mufasa. Clinging for his life, looks up and pleads, "Scar brother, help me." This is the moment Scar has been waiting for his entire life, the culmination of all his jealousy and hatred. He digs his claws into Mufasa's paws, leans in close, and utters those three chilling words, "Long live the king." Then, he throws him back into the stampede below. The dust settles, the thundering of hooves fades, and Simba, who saw his father fall, scrambles down to find his body. The scene is devastating. He tries to wake him up, nudging him, calling for help. The realization that his father is gone is a crushing weight for a child to bear. And Justas es, at his most vulnerable, his most broken, Scar emerges from the dust. He doesn't offer comfort. He doesn't offer sympathy. Instead, he twists the knife. This is the psychological masterstroke of Scar's plan. He looks at the grief-stricken cub and says, "Simba, what have you done?" He plants the seed of guilt. He makes Simba believe the entire tragedy was his fault, that his roar started the stampede, that if he hadn't been there, Mufasa would still be alive. For a child, this is an unbearable burden. Scar tells him the pride will see him as a murderer. His only option. Run away, Simba. Run away and never return. As Simba flees, heartbroken and consumed by guilt, Scar gives his final order to the hyenas. Kill him. He needs to be absolutely sure Simba is out of the way. Fortunately for Simba, he manages to escape. But as far as Scar and the Pride Lands are concerned, the prince is dead, along with his father. With both Mufasa and Simba gone, the path to the throne is clear. Scar returns to Pride Rock, not as a hero but as a grieving brother delivering terrible news. He paints a picture of a horrific accident that claimed both the king and the young prince. He steps into the void, declaring a new era where lions and hyenas will live together. The lionesses are in mourning, too shocked and grief-stricken to question the story. The hyenas, his loyal army, emerge from the shadows to enforce his rule. Scar's plan, years in the making, has succeeded. He is finally the king. For Simba, this is the beginning of his exile. He carries the immense weight of guilt, believing he's responsible for his father's death. This trauma shapes his entire worldview. He finds Timon and Pumbaa, who introduce him to their problem-free philosophy. Hakuna Matata. It's exactly what he needs to hear. A way to forget his past, to stop thinking, to stop feeling the pain. He suppresses the memory, shuts down his royal identity, and tries to live a life without responsibility. But you can't outrun your past forever. The darkest hour wasn't just a stampede itself. It was the psychological manipulation that followed. Scar didn't just kill Mufasa. He destroyed Simba's spirit, poisoning his mind with guilt and shame that would haunt him for years. It was a perfectly executed plan that not only won him the crown but also ensured the rightful heir would never want to claim it. It's a chilling reminder of how deep jealousy can run and the devastating consequences of a lie. What do you think is the most villainous part of Scar's plan? The betrayal of his brother, or the manipulation of his young nephew? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. See you next time. What if Scar survived the fall at Pride Rock? What if his thirst for vengeance led him back to the Pridelands, targeting not just Simba, but his entire family? This is the story of a nightmare that almost came to be, a tale of darkness returning to the light. Our story begins several years after Simba's triumphant return. The Pridelands are thriving. The grass is green, the herds have returned, and the circle of life is in perfect balance. Simba and Nala rule with wisdom and compassion. There reign a golden era for all the animals. Their son, Kion, leads the Lion Guard, protecting the Pridelands with his friends. Their daughter, Kiara, is growing into a curious and adventurous young lioness, destined to one day rule alongside her mate, Kovu. It seems like a happily ever after, a perfect ending to a troubled past. But evil, as we know, doesn't always stay buried. Far from the celebrations in the peaceful savannah, in the desolate elephant graveyard, a shadow stirred. Scar, horribly scarred and emaciated but alive, had been nursed back to a semblance of health by the few hyenas who remained loyal, not out of love, but out of fear and a shared hatred for Simba. His body was a wreck, his face a grotesque mask of his former self, but his mind was sharper and more malevolent than ever. Every waking moment was consumed by a single, burning thought: revenge. He watched the Pride Lands from afar, his spies, vultures, and other scavengers bringing him news of Simba's happy life, his queen, and his children. Each report of their joy was like a hot poker to his soul, fueling a plan that was as cruel as it was cunning. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, a sense of unease settled over the Prideland. The wind carried a strange chill, and the usual evening chorus of crickets and frogs was eerily silent. Zazu, on his evening patrol, noticed it first. The birds were agitated, the herds were clustered together, their eyes wide with fear. He flew frantically back to Pride Rock to warn Simba. "Your Majesty," he squawked, landing breathlessly. "Something is wrong." The air, It feels heavy with dread. Simba, standing on the promontory with Nala, felt it too. A primal instinct told him that a long-dormant threat had reawakened. He had hoped the past was behind them, but a king's duty is to face whatever comes. "Gather the lionesses, Zazu," Simba commanded, his voice a low growl. "Nala, take Kiara and Kion deep inside the den. No matter what you hear, do not come out." Nala's eyes were filled with worry, but she nodded, her trust in Simba unwavering. She herded her children into the safest part of their home, her heart pounding with a fear she hadn't felt since Scar's first reign. The moon rose, casting long, menacing shadows across the savannah. Suddenly, a familiar, chilling laugh echoed through the night. It was a sound that haunted Simba's nightmares. Then, from the darkness, they emerged. Not just a few hyenas, but a legion of them, their eyes glowing like malevolent embers, and leading them, limping but resolute, was Scar. He looked like a phantom, a ghost returned to torment the living. "Simba," his voice rasped, dripping with venom, "I'm a little disappointed in your hospitality. You didn't even send an invitation to the family reunion." Simba stared in disbelief. "Scar. It can't be." But it was. The monster from his past stood before him, ready to unleash hell once more. "Surprised to see me?" Scar sneered, enjoying Simba's shock. "The hyenas may be fools, but they are not entirely without their uses. They left me for dead, but hatred is a powerful medicine, nephew. It kept me alive. It brought me back for this." He gestured with his clawed paw towards Pride Rock. "To take back what is mine, and to destroy everything you love." The battle was immediate and brutal. The lionesses, led by Sarabi and Serafina, fought with the ferocity of mothers protecting their home. They were outnumbered, but their courage was immense. Simba leaped into the fray, a golden blur of fury, aiming straight for Scar. Their last fight had been for the throne. This one was for the soul of the pride. They clashed in a whirlwind of claws and teeth, a brutal dance of old hatreds. But Scar had not come for a fair fight. This was a diversion. While Simba and the lionesses were locked in a desperate battle at the base of Pride Rock, a second, stealthier group of hyenas, led by Janja, had scaled the back of the rock formation. Their target was the den, their mission to capture the royal cubs. They crept silently towards the entrance, their snickering laughter muffled. Inside, Nala heard the soft scrape of claws on stone. Her blood ran cold. She knew Simba was occupied, that she was the last line of defense for her children. Kiara and Kion huddled behind her. Trembling, "Stay behind me," Nala whispered, her body tensing, her own claws on. "Everything will be all right." The hyenas burst into the den. Nala met them with a roar that shook the very stones of Pride Rock. She was a queen, a mother, and a warrior, and she fought with the strength of all three. She swiped and bit, a whirlwind of protective fury, holding the entrance against the giggling, snapping horde. But there were too many. One slipped past her, lunging for Kiara. Suddenly, a flash of red and gold shot past Nala. It was Kovu. He had been on the outskirts, watching the battle unfold, and had seen the hyena's stealthy approach. He tackled the hyena attacking Kiara, his loyalty to his new family burning brighter than any lingering shadow of his past. "Get away from her," he snarled, fighting side by side with Nala. Even with Kovu's help, the numbers were overwhelming. It seemed only a matter of time before they were overrun. Down below, the battle raged. Simba, though powerful, was struggling. Scar, fueled by pure malice, fought with a savage, unpredictable frenzy. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to inflict pain, to break Simba's spirit before he broke his body. "You see, Simba," Scar hissed, slashing at his nephew's face, "you can't protect them. While you fight me, your precious family is being torn apart. You will lose everything, just as Premeta did." Just as Scar's words began to cut deeper than his claws, a mighty roar echoed from the distance. It wasn't the roar of a single lion, but of many. Over the ridge came the lion guard Kian, who had found another way out of the den, alongside Bunga fully beshed. And oh no, they hadn't run. They had gone for reinforcements, and with them were the spirits of the great kings of the past, summoned by Kian's roar of the elders. The ghostly forms of Mufasa and the other kings descended upon the battlefield, their spectral presence terrifying the hyenas. The tide turned in an instant. The hyenas, superstitious and cowardly at heart, broke ranks and fled in terror from the ghostly apparitions. Scar was left alone, surrounded. He looked from the spectral form of his brother Mufasa to the determined face of Simba, his eyes wide with a final, desperate madness. He saw Nala and Kovu emerge from the den, Kiara and Kion safe behind them. His plan, his entire existence built on revenge, had crumbled to dust. Simba approached him, his body weary but his spirit unbroken. "It's over, Scar. Your reign, your hatred. It ends tonight." Scar let out a final, broken laugh. "It's never over, Simba," he rasped, before collapsing, his weak body finally giving out. This time, there would be no coming back. As the sun began to rise, it bathed Pride Rock in a warm, golden light. The threat was gone. The family was safe. Simba gathered Nala, Kiara, Kiar, and Kovu into a group hug, burying his face in their fur. They had faced the ghosts of the past and emerged stronger, more united than ever. The circle of life had been threatened, but it had not been broken. As the kings of the past faded back into the morning sky, Mufasa's spirit seemed to linger for a moment, a proud and loving smile on his face. The Pridelands were safe, not just because of one king's strength, but because of a family's love and the courage to stand together against the darkness. Thanks for watching our What If story today. What other Lion King scenarios would you like to see? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures from the Pride. The sun blazed across the Pride Lands, golden and proud, a kingdom at peace under Mufasa's rule. Every creature bowed in respect as the mighty king walked the savannah with his head held high. Beside him, his younger brother Taka watched with a silent envy burning deep inside. Taka was clever, sharp, and ambitious, but while Mufasa's roar echoed across the land, Taka's voice was drowned by the shadow of greatness. The pride adored Mufasa, his courage, his kindness, his strength, and though Mufasa loved his brother, he could not see the growing darkness in Taka's heart. One day, a messenger bird arrived. The birth of a prince had been announced. The circle of life turned once more, and Simba, son of Mufasa, was born. The kingdom rejoiced. Animals gathered at Pride Rock, and Rafiki lifted the newborn cub high into the sunlight. Cheers filled the air. But Taka stood apart. His eyes cold, he whispered to himself, "So now, even my place in the sun is gone." From that day, jealousy grew like a thorn inside him. Taka began to call himself Scar, after a wound he received while chasing a foolish dream, a mark that reminded him of pain, of pride, and of the unfairness he felt toward fate. Mufasa tried to guide him to remind him of brotherhood, of love, of purpose. But Scar's heart had turned. He smiled less, spoke less, and began to plot silently in the shadows. Yet beneath his bitterness, a part of him still longed to be seen, to be loved, to be king. As Simba grew strong and curious, Mufasa trained him in the ways of leadership. Scar watched from afar, envy flickering like fire in his eyes. He began whispering to hyenas in the elephant graveyard, dark allies who promised him power, if he could promise them chaos. And so, beneath the bright skies of the Pride Lands, a storm began to form, one not of thunder or rain, but of betrayal. The brothers who once played under the same sun were now divided by destiny, and soon, the Pride Lands would feel the cost of one brother's love and another's jealousy. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel! Today, we're rediving deep into the Pride Lands to uncover a story many of you might not know. The origin of the most famous brotherly rivalry in cinematic history. That's right, we're talking about Mufasa and Scar. We all know Scar as the cunning, power-hungry villain who orchestrated his own brother's demise. But was he always this way? What happened between these two sons of a king that led to such a tragic end? The official story, as told in the books and spin-off series, is far more complex and heartbreaking than you might imagine. It's a tale of a broken promise, a forgotten name, and a shadow that grew so large it consumed everything. So, grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's explore the untold story of the Brothers of the Pride. To really understand Scar, we first have to go back to when he was Scar Atoll. He was born with a different name. Takan in Swahili Taka means dirt or trash. Now, you might be thinking, what kind of parents would name their child that? Well, there's a bit of context. It wasn't meant to be malicious. In some traditions, names like this were used to ward off evil spirits or bad luck. But imagine growing up with a name like Taka, while your older brother, Mufasa, has a name that means king. From the very beginning, a subtle difference was established. Mufasa was destined for greatness, while Taka was, well, Taka. Their father, Ahadi, was the king of the Pride Lands at the time, and their mother was Queen Uru. Ahadi was a strong and respected ruler, but he had a clear favorite. All his attention, his training, and his hopes were poured into his firstborn, Mufasa. From a young age, Mufasa was groomed to be the future king. He was strong, charismatic, and embodied all the qualities of a great leader. He spent his days with Ahadi, learning the ways of the kingdom, the circle of life, and the responsibilities he would one day inherit. Taka, on the other hand, was often left to his own devices. He was smaller and weaker than Mufasa, and he felt the weight of his father's indifference keenly. While Ahadi saw a king in Mufasa, he saw little more than a spare in Taka. This parental favoritism is the first crack in the foundation of their brotherhood. Taka desperately craved his father's approval, but no matter what he did, he always seemed to fall short in comparison to his golden boy brother. He wasn't as strong in their play fights, not as confident, and he carried a resentment that started to fester deep within him. Now, it wasn't that Mufasa was a bad brother. In the younger years, they were actually quite close. Mufasa often tried to include Taka in his adventures and stood up for him. But Mufasa was also a bit arrogant and didn't fully understand the depth of Taka's pain. He was the heir, and it came naturally to him. He couldn't see the world from Taka's perspective, a world where he was constantly living in a shadow. Taka, for his part, started to believe that the only way to get his father's attention, the only way to prove his own worth, was to outsmart Mufasa. If he couldn't beat him in strength, he would beat him with his mind. This is where Taka's sharp intellect and cunning nature began to develop. He wasn't born evil. He was a young cub trying to find his place in a world that seemed to have already decided he was second best. The turning point, the incident that changed everything and transformed Taka into Scar, involves a classic tale of jealousy and a plan gone horribly wrong. Taka became convinced that if he could just make Mufasa look bad in front of their father, Ahadi would finally see his own potential. So, he hatched a plan. He knew of a particularly grumpy and dangerous water buffalo named Boma. Taka went to Mufasa and suggested that he should go confront Boma, to show Ahadi how brave he was by getting the buffalo to share a waterhole during the drought. Taka's real plan was for Mufasa to get into trouble, maybe get a little roughed up, and look foolish and reckless. Then, Taka could swoop in, use his cleverness to solve the problem, and finally win his father's praise. He manipulated Mufasa, preying on his pride, telling him a true king would be able to handle such a simple task. Mufasa, ever eager to prove himself, fell for it. He went to confront Boma, but the situation escalated far more quickly and violently than Taka had anticipated. Boma and his herd weren't just grumpy. They were furious. They charged at Mufasa, who suddenly found himself in very real danger. Seeing his brother about to be trampled, Taka's plan crumbled. A flicker of his old brotherly love kicked in, and he raced to help. But the enraged buffalo herd turned on him instead. In the ensuing chaos, one of Boma's horns slashed Taka across his left eye, leaving a deep, permanent gash. He was saved by Mufasa and their father, Ahadi, who arrived just in time. But the damage was done. When Ahadi found out that Taka had orchestrated the whole thing, he was furious. But his anger wasn't just about the recklessness. It was about the endangerment of his precious heir. Instead of showing any concern for Taka's serious injury, Ahadi dismissed it. He saw the incident only as another one of Taka's failures. And then came the moment that sealed Taka's fate. In a fit of bitter irony and defiance, Taka declared that from that day forward, he should be called Scar, as a permanent reminder of his father's foolish mistake in judgment and the unjust treatment he had endured. He embraced the name, turning a mark of physical pain into a symbol of his emotional suffering and his break from the family. He was no longer Taka, the overlooked younger brother. He was Scar, a name born of betrayal and resentment. From that day on, the relationship between the brothers was irrevocably broken. The scar on his face was a constant, visible symbol of the invisible wounds inside. Mufasa felt guilty, but also grew wary of his brother's increasingly dark and manipulative nature. Scar, in turn, saw Mufasa not just as a rival, but as the living embodiment of everything he had lost and everything he could never be. His jealousy curdled into a deep, abiding hatred. He withdrew from the pride, preferring the company of the hyenas in the shadowy outlands creatures, who, like him, felt like outcasts. It was in their company that Scar's bitterness was validated and his plans for revenge began to take shape. He realized he would never get the throne through merit or his father's blessing. The only way to claim the power he so desperately craved was to take it by force. This backstory adds such a tragic layer to the Lion King. Scar isn't just a one-dimensional villain who was born evil. He is a product of his environment, of neglect, favoritism, and one terrible, life-altering mistake. His journey from Taka to Scar is a cautionary tale about how jealousy and resentment, when left unchecked, can poison a person from the inside out. When you rewatch the movie now, think about this history. Think about the young cub named Taka, who just wanted his father's love. Every sneer, every sarcastic comment from Scar is tinged with the pain of a lifetime of being. His plot to kill Mufasa and Simba isn't just about a lust for power. It's the ultimate revenge against the family and the system that he feels created him, only to cast him aside. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If Ahadi had shown both his sons equal love, if Mufasa had been more empathetic to his brother's struggles, could things have been different? Could the tragedy have been avoided? Perhaps. But as it stands, the story of Mufasa and Scar is a perfect example of how family dynamics can forge heroes and villains from the very same bloodline. It is a dark and complex history that gives so much more weight to the events we see unfold in The Lion King. What do you guys think? Does knowing Scar's backstory change how you see him as a villain? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.